Cary, great to meet you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to talk to you, Michael.
I love talking to fellow runners, and so I'm going to share this story with you that I was telling you how I have ultra running friends here in Phoenix, and I remember one time sitting with them, we're all hanging out, and I always would love to bring people that like don't run to meet them because they're just blown away by the fact that how can anybody run 100 miles? I can't even drive that far. The typical responses, and it was always funny to me. Well, the one time we were all chatting, and the question came up of what is the perfect distance to run, and I threw out a number, so anywhere from a 5K to a 100 mile. What do you think is the perfect distance to run?
Me personally, I'm going to say something that doesn't feel like torture. So, when I was running regularly, I would say anywhere from 5K to a 10K would be ideal. It didn't beat me up too bad, and I got a lot of good aerobic benefit out of it. So I would say, what is that? 3, 4 miles at the most. I'd say 3 miles.
So you know what their answer was,
What?
and it was all the same too, by the
100
way.
yards? 100 yards?
No, half marathon.
A half marathon.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the thought process with it was a 5K. You got to run hard for 3 miles. You got to like basically do an all out sprint. 13 miles, it's enough to let your body kind of get into the rhythm. You can run hard, but you're not like killing yourself. And then a
Hmm.
marathon, I mean, to run 26.2 miles on, 26.2 miles on concrete, it's brutal, man. I mean, that's just
Sure.
brutal.
Well, I don't think the point of running is to torture yourself. It's nice to go out there and try and beat your personal best, but if you torture yourself when you do it, you're going to end up hating it, and that's not what it's about. Anything that you love to do shouldn't be torture. So um, when I took my time and slowed down and put it into an aerobic speed, and just let my body go at a pace that it was comfortable with. I felt like I could go indefinitely. So, 5, 10 miles was no problem at all. And the the I don't know, the what I really got high on was the fact that I could do that with ease. Not that I was killing myself. I could barely finish. It wasn't some epic thing. It was just my body doing what it was capable of doing.
How often do you run now?
I don't run very often. I had a hamstring injury from sprinting a couple months ago, and it's been winter here, so it's not been ideal to run. What I've been doing is I've been getting on the assault bike twice a week and doing sprints where I'll go as hard as I can for 10 seconds, and I'll do this twice a week where I'll do 5 sets of 10-second sprints, and I, I feel like it's giving me a chance to purge all the glycogen from my system, and getting my heartbeat up into a good aerobic zone. Um, I've heard that it also enables me to burn visceral fat, the fat around my organs and stuff. And I'm always interested in those kind of hacks because that kind of fat isn't really good for us.
Yeah, so I want to get into your backstory, and then after that, I want to ask you a question. So, if you don't mind, just letting people know who you are and your background.
Okay, well, today, currently, I'm a butcher. I cut meat, and I mess around on Twitter and try and help people wake up to this corrupt system of food, drugs, and medicine that has us on this hamster wheel, and it's pretty much trying to milk us for everything it's worth. And that's my passion right now. Pretty much spend all my free time trying to help other people wake up too. And it all started about when I was 40 years. I'm 55 today. 15 years ago.
Today's your
My
birthday? Excuse me, I
No, no,
interrupted.
no, no,
Oh,
no,
oh,
no.
oh.
I'm 55 as of this minute, not today
Oh.
specifically.
Would have told you happy birthday, Cary. I don't want
Thanks, thanks. So anyway, when I turned 40, my health took a severe nosedive. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, and I was just living with excruciating pain every single day. And from that point until the age of 48, I started gaining weight for the first time in my life. I had always been rail thin, could eat whatever I want, and I did eat whatever I wanted. And it never reared its ugly head and made me look unhealthy. Although I always dealt with depression and mental health problems and focusing problems, ADD even. But none of it was ever diagnosed. So all my problems were beneath the surface. But at the age of 40, I started gaining some weight, and my problems got more amplified. And I didn't change my diet. No doctor ever told me I needed to change my diet. They just told me I needed to deal with my pain, and that I could manage it with physical therapy. But they basically said I was just going to have to get used to the way things were. It's just part of getting old. So from the age of 40 to the age of 48, my health tanked, and finally I reached the end of my metabolic rope. When I was at age 48, I had a little, I thought felt like a mini stroke. My arm went numb on me on a very hot day when I was exerting myself, and I thought I was having a stroke. And it was right then and there that I decided to change something in my life, or I wasn't going to make it to see the age of 50. And to be frank, there were many days where I didn't care if I made it to age 50, because I was tired of having this chronic inflammation rule every moment of my waking day. The only time that I would not have chronic inflammation ruling my day was when I first wake up. For first 2 or 3 hours, I would feel pretty good. But as the day dragged on, and the more I was on my feet, the more I would just ache to the bone and just be a miserable person. So I adopted a ketogenic diet. I met a guy a couple months before that who told me about his ketogenic journey, and that he had lost 80 pounds or 60 pounds in his first year. And it was just a matter of passing. I didn't ask him about it. He just told me, because, as you know, people that do this sort of thing, they just feel this incredible urge to share the feeling and the excess and the elation and the relief that they experience when they change their lives like that. And I thank God that he told me that story, because I remembered that story when I had my little episode, and I said, I'm going to try that because I don't have anything to lose. And so the very next day after my little episode, I had bacon and eggs for breakfast, and I had a ribeye steak and some broccoli for dinner, and then I never looked back.
So what when you said that you were eating, what were you eating from 40 to 48? And prior to that, because that's when you were putting on weight. Were you someone that was always just naturally thin or had a high metabolism? You could get away with it?
Sure, I was I guess the opposite of insulin resistant. I was very insulin sensitive, so I could eat anything. I could eat ice cream and cookies and potato chips for dinner and not gain a pound. I could eat candy 5 times a day. I was just immune to gaining weight. I actually tried to gain weight because I felt like I was too thin. And
So as
I
high school
I know now,
in high school and all
since
that
high
too?
school, I was 155 pounds from the age of 17 to the age maybe 35.
And you're how
While
tall?
actively
How
trying to gain weight, I'm 5'10" and a half,
Oh
almost
wow.
5'11".
So
So
you're a naturally thin guy.
right, so I was pretty thin. I had the same belt for almost 20 years. And that all changed once I turned 40. And I didn't change how I ate at all, but I feel like the food changed. If you look at the ingredients for uh, Ritz crackers today versus Ritz crackers 40 years ago, the ingredients are completely different. And I think the addition of more seed oils and more chemicals is just turned our food into these metabolic time bombs that we put in ourselves, and they just create havoc. And yeah, I don't think I changed much. I think the food changed, but I didn't help with the things I was eating. I ate whatever I wanted, and a lot of once started having the chronic inflammation, I was always tired. So I would go home after a hard day of work, and I didn't want to cook. I didn't want to be on my feet anymore. So I would order junk, takeout, pizza, whatever, or throw something in the microwave or the oven to cook, and I didn't eat whole foods. I didn't eat like my grand my grandparents ate, which is what I try to eat like now. And yeah, I had a terrible diet. So
Yeah, and so you had your breaking point, and you have this conversation. It's amazing. You never know where a conversation is going to take you, right? And
right.
permanently set you on a different trajectory. But now you set out to make these changes. People like don't realize how hard that is. So how overweight were you? And were you active in your 20s and 30s at all? Or were you just going to work and coming home?
I was active in that I was always working in jobs where I was on my feet all day long. I would work 40, 50 hours nonstop, putting in probably 12 to 18,000 steps every single day for my 20s and 30s, and even my 40s. It just really started hurting when I got into my 40s. Um, what was the question? I'm sorry.
No, I was how active were you like even in your 20s and 30s, and then
Okay, yeah.
oh god.
Well, in my 20s, I was pretty active. I had a lot more energy in my 20s. I would play basketball and softball, in my free time on when days I weren't working and stuff like that. So I was pretty active. I was never really sedentary. And the only thing that changed when I started gaining all that weight, and by the way, I went from 155 to about 210, and then I quit weighing myself. I was just like, if I don't see it, it's not happening. I stopped looking at the scale for a couple of years. So I could have been 220, 225, maybe even a little higher, but I would estimate around 225-ish, just at the rate that I was gaining weight. So yeah,
People don't realize too when you take this on and you decide that you're going to, make changes, how hard it is. When you get to the other side of it, you're like, wow, it wasn't that difficult, but it's a hard, it's a hard process to start. So because you're going
absolutely.
from you're giving up a lifestyle that you've known your whole life, and starting to make these changes to move in a different direction, and it just takes time. So what was the plan then for you when you embarked on this?
Well, I think, well, first of all, the older you get, the more you don't like things to change. You like things to stay the same. And for that, for me, looking back, it's very remarkable for me that I really took this big a leap, being someone that doesn't like change. And I think it took some desperation for that to occur. Like I said, I got to my breaking point, the end of my metabolic rope, and the fact that I didn't care if I lived past the age of 50 was kind of frightening. But I thought that as a matter, just in a matter of factly kind of way. It was like, well, I don't really care because I just want relief from all this inflammation, this chronic inflammation. And it's just like waking up and having this rainstorm going on inside your body every single day, and then you're just like, I'm so tired of this, I just want it to be over. And that's what prompted me to change. I didn't want to I didn't want to give up. I feel like maybe God or chance or whatever you want to call it put that person in my life and told me about the ketogenic diet to show me a way out of this darkness that I was in. And it just felt really surreal. Like, I need to do this. I felt compelled.
So what was the first thing you did?
The first thing I
Well,
did,
before you answer that, Cary, did you decide? I had Mimi on a few months ago. She's a big carnivore person, and
Mhm.
she had said she started with her eating first before she started, then looked at the physical activity. Me personally, I was more to want to get moving, like even a half. I tell people a half an hour on a stationary bike or a walk or a little bit of weightlifting, just to, I don't know, it just was a good incentive for me. So that's why I'm curious with you. What was the first thing you started?
I never, I never put a lot of heavy commitment into the physical aspect of moving to lose weight because like I said, I was always in jobs where I was on my feet. So I was walking all day long. I was putting in the steps, 12, 15,000 steps, which is significantly more than most people walk in several days. And I was doing that on a daily basis. So I felt like I was putting in the physical part of the weight loss equation, which I really only think is probably 10% of the battle. 90% of weight loss or weight maintenance is food, and
I agree.
that's what I focused on. I literally lost 50 or 50ish pounds without a single drop of sweat. So
So what?
I
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say that, however, I think there's great benefit from resistance training and or even aerobics in the form of running or whatever it is that you enjoy, and I definitely encourage people to take on those things, but not just to lose weight or as the main component of weight loss, but to look at it as like a way to enhance your health, not a way to lean on to lose weight. I love going to the gym. I go to the gym 5 days a week to resistance train, and I believe that uh, we die when we run out of strength. And if you're in the gym getting stronger every day, that's just making it for you to be harder to die. Obviously, there's the we have organs and they have a shelf life and things are going on there. But when we lose the will and the strength to keep going is when our body gives up. And I feel like resistance training is just delaying all of that.
I agree, and I had stayed away from, not for any reason, stayed away from weight training for a long time, and been back in it now for 2 years. And I was like, I don't want to go back. People with their selfies and their, looking at themselves in the mirror, and I'm like really quirky where that stuff annoys me. But I'll tell you now, I'm glad I went back because it also, you get a core group of people of regulars, and they're all working towards like a similar goal, different but similar. Like we're all trying to get stronger. We're all trying to, we work hard. We're focused. And I do a lot of yoga too. And not that yoga's got its own, it's a different animal, but I don't feel that sense of energy from yoga that I do from weight training.
All right. Um, I didn't lift weights for my entire adult life. I tried to work out when I was younger because I wanted, everybody wanted to be buff and have a nice physical looking body, but I never could put on any kind of muscle at all. And that frustrated me and made me really not want to, or it made me think that I wasn't going to get anything out of going to a gym that I wanted. And it wasn't until I was 52 and going into the gym and eating tons of protein, and because that was just the way I was eating. I wasn't, saying I needed to eat protein to work out, but it just happened to work out that way. And I finally started putting on muscle at the age of 52, after never figuring it out that I need to eat protein to increase muscle mass, and that just kind of motivated me more to keep going to the gym. I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, "Whoa, who is that?" I've never seen myself with arms like that, my shoulders getting bigger, and it's just really cool to look in the mirror and say, who is that? And that's me.
The other thing is, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about young people. And I don't know if you noticed this, but I used to be one of those. I would criticize young people like they're not motivated, they're this, they're that, and the ones in the gym that I meet, especially some of the younger guys, these guys work hard and they take care of themselves. When I was 20 years old, I was not taking care of myself. I mean, I smoked, I drank, I was at that time I was like 250 and I'm only 5'5". All I wanted, Belushi from Animal House was like my mentor. And these young guys, they work their asses off.
I agree. I think most of them are in the right place with their mentality, but I don't think most of them understand how to eat properly, how to properly fuel themselves. I hear them talking about or see them, eating their energy bars and their energy drinks and just eating all these carbs because they think they need it to get big. But I've met quite a few people on X who haven't used those things to get really really massive. Sam Hool, I don't know if you know him, but
I love that guy's
he,
handle. You know what? I'm trying to get him on here. I look at his
he's
stuff all the time.
yeah, he's just an absolute beast, and he doesn't really mess with carbs much. So, and I think all those things that they're eating now to fuel their workouts has consequences, and it's slowly beating their metabolisms down. And I think that they're going to have the same problems I had when they get to be, in their 40s and 50s. Hopefully, they figure it out sooner. But it took me a while to figure it out, and I think I'm a fairly intelligent person. There's just so much misinformation out there that's repeated over and over, and the deck is stacked against them.
Well, and it's hard too to I don't know about you, but since COVID, it made me realize like the whole system is just one big lie, and the pyramid diet, and I mean, as a kid, again, I'm a little bit younger than you, but I remember it was the fat free. You had to have the fat free cookies or the what was the Coke? We had Diet Coke or Coke
Yep,
Zero or
yep. And margarine. Everybody ate margarine. I had Country Crock.
oh,
Mom,
I forgot about Country Crock.
God, I never touched that stuff again. I ate it my whole most of my entire childhood, and it's just terrible stuff. But yeah, my mom um, brought me up with the standard American diet thing and the food pyramid and all that stuff. And God bless her, but I think I would have been taller and healthier if she had fed me a little more meat and eggs and less margarine and all the granola bars and cereal and all the stuff that they were putting on TV.
And I remember seeing, specials or one of those MTV. I used to watch a ton of MTV when I was younger. One of them was like, "I want the perfect body," and it was really interesting because it was about, they focused on three people. One was a horse jockey who couldn't put on weight. He weighed like 105 pounds or something, and he just couldn't eat. Couldn't find himself motivated to eat. But then they had it was somebody they took like a dietitian went to the store with them and says, stay out of the middle. Just shop on the outside of the perimeter of the store and don't go down the aisles. That's where all the bad stuff was. And, you look back on that, I was like, wow, because you look at the aisles outside of salt and pepper, some of the seasonings, and, there's nothing of not much value in down in
Right.
the center.
They're definitely ahead of their time if they were telling people to stay out of the center of the grocery store. What, back in the 90s? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, 90s, early 2000.
Okay. Yeah. I tell people that too. The middle of the store is a food desert. You might find a few oils, olive oil, avocado oil in the center, bottled water, beef jerky, pork rinds, canned meats, sardines, tuna, um, and then I'm not 100% carnivore, so I like some tomatoes. So I'll get some organic tomatoes out of the center. I like olives, peppers. jalapenos, stuff like that. So it's not impossible, but the stuff in the center of the store that I eat is not the focus. It's, things that are extras in my diet. The My mainstay is on the perimeter, the meat and the eggs and the butter, a little bit of dairy, definitely the eggs too. So I keep telling people that if they took all the garbage out of the grocery store and just had stuff that was healthy for us, it would be the size of a 7-Eleven.
It's a good point. It would be so shrunken down.
Definitely be a lot easier to grocery shop. We'd be in and out of there. I also tell people that it also takes me less time to shop for my groceries than it would to rob a bank.
Yeah, people don't when you switch to the way you eat and the way I'm eating. You're right. You only go in there and grab a couple things.
Right. You don't browse. You go exactly where you need to go, and you're like, okay, I'm grabbing this, I'm grabbing that. This is on sale, and then you're out of that area.
When you started this when you went to the ketogenic, what was the first thing that you changed?
Uh, I mean, the food is the most obvious thing.
Like what? But what were you eating? Then what did you cut out, or what did you to start to move in that different direction?
I totally completely changed my diet overnight. I I quit eating. One of my favorite things to do every week was go to the grocery store who that excuse me had the most amazing fried chicken, and I would just go get a family pack of that chicken every single Tuesday and just eat it until I was sick. Well, not sick, but so stuffed that I felt sick, and that was a really not a good thing, but a big part of my week. Every week I would look forward to that chicken. Um, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. I ate cereal every night before bed.
Oh, what kind of cereal, Cary?
Frosted Flakes was my main. Um, Pretty much Frosted Flakes, but I could eat any cereal as long as it was sugary.
Count Chocula, Cary? You ever?
Yeah, sure. I had them all growing up. Mom would
Me
turn
too.
me loose on the cereal aisle and let me grab a box of whatever I wanted, and I would just try them all.
Me too.
And it was the commercials that stuck in your head. They still stuck in my head to this day, the songs and everything else. And when I got to the point where I tried them all, I would pick whatever had the best prize in it. I don't know if they still have prizes like they used to, but yeah, cereal was takes me down that road into my childhood. I could still hear all the commercials. But yeah, I ate chips, cookies, crackers, pretty much garbage. If you turn on the TV and look at commercials today, you could write my grocery list from the commercials that came on. That's pretty much how I ate. It was rare that I would eat a decent meal. Um, TV dinners, um, Stover's lasagna, the boxed
French bread
Tex,
pizza.
Texas toast, French bread pizzas, the State Fair corn dogs that you microwave in the oven. I would eat 8 of those for dinner with mustard and
Here, I got one. Did you ever do the breakfast starts? Do you remember those?
breakfast starts.
Yeah. No,
No, I don't.
they'd have French toast and sausage links in a container, and you'd throw it in the microwave for 3 minutes. And,
No, I never did those, but they had these. It was like a corn dog with sausage in it that I would dip in maple syrup. I would eat like 3 or 4 of those. They were terrible, but just the combination of all the salts and the sugars just made them very compulsive to eat. So yeah, I was the worst person to model your diet after when right before I went keto, and I went to Costco and I bought a big jar of almonds because almonds were keto, and in hindsight almonds weren't the best choice because, there's something you see them, you're like, okay, I'll just eat a few just because they're there. And next thing you know, you've had 25 almonds today, and that's, a couple hundred calories. Not that I counted calories, but it's little things like that creep into your diet that might end up keeping you from living up to your potential. So anyway, um, got the almonds, got a big bag of broccoli, got a bunch of steaks, some chicken legs, chicken thighs, chicken wings, some pork chops, and was off to the races. And I try to have a vegetable with every meal. It would be broccoli or cauliflower or Brussels sprouts or asparagus, just because I was always in that habit of having a veggie aside with every meal. It took me years to get out of the mentality. Um, Eventually, I just started listening to my body about what I wanted to eat. And I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of broccoli. And after having broccoli 3 times a week for 2 years on the keto diet, I've had broccoli once in the past 4 years, and I'm not even bothered by it.
What were you drinking before and then when you started this?
Um, a lot of milk, a lot of chocolate milk during the day. I was pretty good in that. Yes, I drink soda regularly, but I tried to only drink Coke at dinner time. So I could buy a case of Coke and limit myself to one or two Cokes at dinner. But in hindsight, you look back and if you drink just one Coke a day, it's like 7 or 8 teaspoons of sugar, and if you multiply that over the course of a year, it's like 50 pounds of sugar or something. It's an insane amount when you add it up over the long haul. But yeah, I rarely drink water in hindsight. Once or twice a day, probably a cup or 2 cups. But now water, I some days I can't drink enough water. It tastes really good to me. Um, and I do drink a little coffee now. Decaf in the morning, I'll have about 12 ounces. But water, I can't get enough of it, and it's crazy because when I was younger, my mom was always yelling at me to, drink water, drink water, drink water, and I hated it. And then as I got older, I've become my mother, and I'm drinking water and not much of anything else. It's so what she said was the right advice. Actually, just took me quite a few years to get into that mentality.
I feel like I'm talking to myself here, Cary. I forgot about chocolate milk because I used to drink that a lot too, and I put so much Hershey syrup in it.
Hmm. Yeah, I would make my own, but I usually would just limit myself to like a half gallon because if I got a gallon, I would drink it in 2 or 3 days, but I would still drink the half gallon in a day and a half, so it wasn't much better. And that stuff's not cheap. Keep drinking that all the time.
I like the high C drink boxes, high C and Hawaiian Punch, and then
Yep,
Capri Sun.
Capri Sun. I used to take those and put them in the freezer and cut the top off and scrape them out like these little frozen ices. And then if you try to suck on them, you like cut the sides of your mouth on the Capri Sun sharp edges. So good times.
When you look back on all that, you know, and look where you're at now, could you imagine even drinking or eating any of that?
I'm sorry, you broke
Oh
up
no,
for the
I
last
said, I
10
know, I
seconds.
said, can you imagine? You look where you're at now. Can you imagine even eating or drinking any of that stuff?
Uh, I can imagine it, but I don't want to. It, I still have these strong memories of what it's like to eat a Ritz cracker. It's so vivid. I just can remember it like it was a couple hours ago, and it's that way with every single thing I've ever eaten that has been compulsive. All these big food things, they engineer them to make them as addictive as possible, and the memories that get stuck in your head, they're always there. They never go away. So sometimes in a moment of weakness, I'll remember what it was like to drink a Coke, and I have to like take a step back and say, I don't do that anymore, or a piece of pizza, or a bite of cereal, or an Oreo cookie, or whatever. And those memories are probably the most dangerous thing that I have to deal with. And what helps me is I try to remember that those things were engineered to trap me, to keep me down and addicted and coming back, and working and spending all my money on all these products, and then spending even more money because all those products made me unhealthy, and then just being a miserable person. And that's what keeps me from putting them in my mouth again. But like I said, those memories, they're very strong. It's hard to forget what it's like to eat those things.
When you started this, and 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, were there ever the cravings to go back to that, or cave in, and did you?
Yes, there were definitely cravings. I would say most of mine faded in the first couple of months. Like I no longer wanted to eat a potato chip. Uh, and what helped make them fade was the inflammation just left my body. And that that was worth the price of entry right there. That's life changing stuff, to not being inflamed, for 20 hours of every day. And that, when you're like that all the time under that chronic pain, um, it changes you. It makes you a cynical, bitter, sarcastic person. And it was to the point where I didn't even know who I was until I stopped being chronically inflamed. And then, I stopped being so pessimistic. I started being more optimistic, and even the people around me noticed that, I was becoming a different person. And all those things right there is what kept me straight. Um, I didn't want to go back to feeling the way I was. That just wasn't an option. I wasn't going to do that. I liked who I was. I liked how I felt, and I didn't want to go back. So that's what kept me straight.
Isn't it amazing though too? I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you're going through this transformation, and people that listen to me know my story. Uh, how people, you know, nobody says anything to you when you're fat, right, Cary? Like nobody says anything to you, hey, you should lose weight. But when
Right.
you're going through a change in a positive way, people look at you, don't lose too much weight, or don't do this, or don't do that, and everybody tells you what you need too when you're making the change. You realize you know what you need, but now everyone's coming through the woodwork. You need this, you need that, and I just find it funny how people like also try to bring you down.
It's so backwards, because if you gain 50 pounds, nobody says a word because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But if you lose 50 pounds, everybody's like, "Are you okay? Are you sick? Is something wrong?" And that's just so backwards to me. I think people should be showing concern if you're gaining a bunch of weight, because I don't know about you, but I had a lot of stress eating in my life. And when things were going bad, I would eat even more garbage, and then it would show itself as weight gain or inflammation, bloating, that sort of thing. And we just look at that completely backwards.
Yeah, I tell people I'm just really good at eating. Like some people can crochet and quilt.
Right,
I'm very good at eating bad food.
right. I never really had any hobbies. I just worked and did my thing. And whenever I would be asked what my hobbies were on a questionnaire or an application or something, I would put eating, because I enjoyed it. I did.
But I would think though too, making this change, it helped in the line of work that you're in being a butcher because you were familiar with, just eating a lot of meat. So it wasn't like you were going from a plant-based vegan lifestyle to switching over.
Right. Um, I love the component of my job that allows me to put healthy things in people's grocery carts. I worked in the restaurant industry for 28 years, and I fed people tons of seed oils and sugars and things that were terrible for them. And I feel a little guilty about that, and I feel like I'm able to make up for some of that by putting ground beef and beef in people's grocery carts now, which is 80%, 90% of my diet, 80% of my diet. So I'm practicing what I preach in my new job. It's not the most high-paying job in the world, but it pays my bills, and I get by just fine. I have a lot of good benefits. So
How much meat consumption do you have on a daily basis?
I would say around 2 pounds, kilo for you people in the UK. Um, I'll like today I had about a pound of ground beef for breakfast, and then I'm looking at a pound of sirloin tips for dinner. So right at 2 pounds today. I don't intentionally try to eat that amount, but over the years I've come to know what makes me feel satisfied, and it's right around 2 pounds a day. But if I go 48 hours without eating and I've got some prime rib in front of me, I can put down 3 pounds easily if it's prepared right.
Then from a fasting standpoint, how often do you do that, or do you fast?
I do. A couple times a week, I'll eat one meal a day. Um, I was pretty good about doing a 48-hour fast a couple times a month. I've been a little slack this year, and talking about it now makes me want to put it on my to-do list because I love the empowerment of being able to go that long and reminding myself that food does not rule me, that I control what and when I put in my mouth. And I also really enjoy how I feel after about 30 hours into my fast. I just get a lot of really good energy, positive vibes. Feel just really highly motivated and energetic, and it's like being on ketones for the first time. Your brain's just burning so clear, and you just have a ton of energy, and I enjoy that. So I kind of miss that. So that's why I want to get back into a 48-hour fast here pretty soon.
But 48 is that the most you've ever gone?
I've gone 72 hours before. I don't feel like it was much different from a 48. It kind of feels the same after 24 hours, to be honest. Once you get that thought of eating at certain times of day out of your head, it feels the same to me. And I'm not really trying to lose a ton of weight at this point, but I think if you're trying to lose weight, 72 might be good. But all the main benefits that you're going to get from autophagy and human growth hormone, which really gets increased during extended fasting, all of that peaks out around 72 hours from what I've learned.
Yeah, the most that I've gone so far is 25 or 26 hours.
hmm I'm out. I also being someone who works out a lot, I don't want to keep myself away from protein, regular protein, because protein is what helps us build muscles, and fasting will uh, break down a little bit of protein in our muscles, and but not a ton, but if it's breaking down a little, it's not growing. So that's why I try to not do extended fasts for too long too often.
Well, and also, when I tell people, and maybe it's the same for you, you share with them your story or what your eating consists of. And I have so many people that are like, don't you miss pasta? Don't you? You need carbs. You need, and
Right.
coming back to what everybody tells you what you need carbs. You need, I'm like, okay, why? Why? Where is that written that I need this stuff?
I had a guy who was eating a donut, literally had a donut in his hand, asking me or saying, telling me, I don't understand how you can eat steak first thing in the morning as he was eating a donut. And I'm like, if you could just see yourself right now, um, you're eating all those refined carbs and all that sugar and the food colorings and food dyes, and you're telling me that one of the most natural things on the planet that's ancient is something I'm not supposed to eat first thing in the morning. It's just peak hypocrisy.
I had uh, I was at the grocery store last night, and I was talking to a woman, and they had pretzels that were on sale right where I was standing, and that was something that I when I was younger, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought, oh, pretzels are good. That's a healthy snack. It's not as bad as potato chips, right? And I said, yeah, I wouldn't eat those pretzels. And she's like, well, why? I go, look what's in this stuff. I go, here, pull this out. Grabbed a bag, flip it around. I go, most of these ingredients, I don't know what they are, so I probably don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat lecithin gum or xanthan gum, excuse me. Like that's probably it's not something I want to eat.
Pretzels are one of those things where you could just eat nonstop, and like you'll never get full. You could eat a half gallon of pretzels, and it doesn't really fill you up. You're still hungry. I don't know what it is about pretzels.
The uh, potato chips, cashew. I'm like you. I used to love cashews and trail mix. That was another snack they sold you on, like a healthy alternative. Trail mix.
Um, yeah, all the grains and the M&Ms. That's my favorite that they put in trail mix now. I've actually worked in some restaurants where we made our own granola, which is pretty much trail mix, and with pumpkin seeds and steel cut oats, honey, and we had a few other things in it, raisins. It was actually pretty good, but it's still a glycemic bomb. It's not something good for someone who has a damaged metabolism and a chronically elevated blood sugar level.
So you stay away from that stuff now.
Pretty much. I'll eat occasionally. I will. I don't try to limit my carbs, but occasionally I'll get into the 50, 60 grams per day. Um, Yesterday, I experimented with sourdough bread. I ate a ton of sourdough bread to see what it did to my blood glucose, and because I'd never had a good homemade sourdough bread. And interestingly, my blood glucose after 2 hours of eating an enormous slab of sourdough bread was 136 in comparison, I had some homemade French bread made from French flour last summer, about an equal portion, and my blood glucose level was 203 after a couple of hours. So it was mind blowing that it was that big a difference just because the bread was fermented for a lot longer than the French bread that I ate, which really wasn't fermented at all. I just threw it together and let it rise for an hour and baked it.
How did it taste?
Oh, amazing. I've always been a big bread hound. Any fresh baked homemade bread is amazing to me. But I can go through into the grocery store and the smell of all the fake breads. It just hits me in the face. I can smell the chemicals and the preservatives. I don't know about you, but it's not my favorite place in the store. That doesn't even qualify as bread to me anymore. But back to your original question, um, just gravitate towards low carb because I like meat and eggs, and um, so I'm generally in the 20 to 30 grams a day easily. Some days I'm less than 10.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine where he was saying when he travels, he eats whatever he wants. He'll drink beer, he'll drink he'll eat breads, cookies. But he's like, when I'm home, 90% of the time I do carnivore or very low carb. And, I wish I had that type of my problem is I don't know, moderation when it comes to that stuff.
I agree. I'm the same way. Like the bread is a good example. I had this loaf that was like this, and I ate this much of it. That's not moderation. But I convinced myself that this bread is 2 days old when it got to me, so I need to eat it within a couple of days before it's past optimal state. So that was my excuse last night, and I've got a piece like this now. So I'll be kind of be happy when it's gone because then I'll stop thinking about it. So those kinds of things, I know what my weaknesses are, and I guess I'm fortunate to say my biggest weaknesses are bread and rice, which is a lot better than Doritos and Frosted Flakes and all that other crap that's got a ton more chemicals and garbage in it. So
Yeah, that's how I like alcohol. I could care less about. I mean, I haven't had a drink in almost 2 years, and not because I had a problem or anything or was doing too much of it. It just yeah, whatever. And when I would drink, it would just be mostly beer and sometimes wine. But the last time I had one, the next day I went out for a run, and it was May, and in Phoenix it's starting to heat up, and I just felt like hell out in the desert running, and I haven't had one since. But man, you put cookies, like homemade cookies, or like my mom makes pumpkin bread when I go back there in October. I usually go back in October, and last year was an example of it. I mean, I asked her to make it, and I just went right through it.
mm,
And then I justified in my mind. I was like, well, my mom's not going to live forever. There's going to come a time where she can't make this stuff. So,
it's so
enjoy
easy to
it.
make an excuse. So easy to find an excuse. I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings. I'll eat her cookies. Yeah. As for quitting drinking, I felt um, when I was able to quit eating Doritos and Frosted Flakes and all that, I says, well, why can't I quit smoking? I've been smoking for 30 years, and one day I said I'll quit smoking. I quit smoking um, right before COVID in 2020. And looking back, I'm saving around $3,500 a year from not smoking. And who couldn't use $3,500 more in their bank account? So I turned that into eating pretty much whatever I want. I'll eat steak every other day if I want, and I can afford it now that I'm not smoking. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. Well, and also, I mean, I see like on Facebook people like my age and their kids and they're taking them places and man, the stuff that they're giving them. And I get when we were younger, our parents didn't know better, but now there's enough information. I mean, just this conversation to for people just to kind of just look at things differently and be like, okay, you don't need to have all this today.
Right. The voices from the grassroots movement of people like us saying, "Hey, that's not cool. The low fat thing that they keep telling you to eat is not cool. There's a much better way, and the road you're heading down is one that has disease and uh, and suffering and poor health." And so you're right. People don't have the same excuses that our parents had, who were just doing what everyone else was doing and what they heard on the TV and in the news. So hopefully, even more people from the grassroots movement speak up and get the message out there that life doesn't have to be the way that people are living it. We got all these kids that are sick and that have chronic diseases that weren't getting into adults until much later in their life. It's crazy how sick our youth is right now.
Yeah, and you've taken it a step further, and you've created a cookbook to provide solutions for people.
Right. Provide solutions for the things that they love, to give them variety and to show that eating real food doesn't have to be boring. I've made over 150 recipes. Not all of those are in the cookbook, but I've made over 150 recipes, and I put in new recipes into my recipe sharing website every single week. So there's so many different things out there that you can eat. Um, if there's 50 something different cuts on a cow, for instance, and if there's 8 different ways to prepare each one of those cuts, that's that's enough meals to provide you with something different for an entire year, just from beef alone. So we're only limited by our imagination and our ability to search on the internet for ideas. There's so many ideas out there that people are sharing.
What's the is there one particular recipe that you're really proud of that you were able to come up with a solution?
Um, to say I'm proud of, I was thinking about this the other day and I had something, but it's hard for me to think of now. Oh, the bacon onion rings. It's not carnivore, but I really love these bacon onion rings. I could eat them every day, but they're a little bit of a pain in the butt to make. Um, for the amount of work you put into it and cook them, you eat them, they're gone in 5 minutes. But I could eat those every day. I wish I could teach somebody to make them for me.
But you did a ketchup too.
Yeah, recently made a ketchup. I don't eat ketchup just with by itself, but I have a couple of recipes that I use ketchup in, and that's why I went that route. And I was previously using Heinz stevia sweetened ketchup, and that was one of the very few big food items that I still purchased, and I'd just be much happier to just completely divorce myself from big food products if I can help it. So that's kind of that does kind of make me proud that I made that, because like I said, now that's one less thing that big food is getting my money from.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that if our society or our government invested into farming and going back to the simple food process system, man, how healthy would we be today?
We're spending so much money on disease that's insane. If we just took half of that money and put it into regenerative agriculture and things like that, and less money into subsidies that make all our junk food, I don't think there would be a chronic obesity and diabetes epidemic. We have our priorities all wrong.
But I also, I always say to people, it's not the government's job to fix you or mandate you, and you have to start within your own local household and get things in order and hold
Absolutely.
yourself accountable.
The government is not the parent of the people. That's one of my favorite things to say recently. It's not their job to tell us what to eat, and I don't want them telling me what to eat, because today they're saying um, high fructose corn syrup is bad. We don't want you to eat it anymore. Okay, so what's to stop the next administration from saying red meat is bad for you? We don't want you to eat it anymore. I don't want the government to have that kind of power over what's on my plate ever. I want people to be educated, for there to be proper warning labels on products like cigarettes, for instance. Um, and sure, if you want to say red meat's bad for me, put your sticker on there, but give me the choice to eat it or don't eat it. Don't tell me I can't.
I liked what Sama wrote. He's like, "This is what we survived on hundreds of years ago. Was red meat and raw."
Yeah, sure. Ancient foods don't cause modern diseases. I don't care how many times they say otherwise. That's just reality.
Where can people find you, Cary?
Mostly on X, at Cary Kelly 11. That's where most of my social media presence is.
And if they want your book,
Amazon has it. Most of the Amazon markets. It's Carnicopia, Carnipia. The cookbook you're doctor didn't want you to read.
For people that are listening, support Cary and support what he's doing. He is, he has decided to make the change personally, and now he's, put this book together to provide solutions for people. So I encourage everyone to go out and buy his book.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that.
I look forward to our next conversation. Oh, one last question. So, where do you go from here? I mean, back to running, back to.
As the weather gets better, I would like to put in a couple runs a week at least. I miss that feeling of after that first half mile kicks in, all the endorphins and happy chemicals just get into my brain, and all my pain and worries and all those things go away. So I'd like to run a couple times a week, at least coming up here this summer. I continue working out in the gym 5 days a week. That's like my second office. I really enjoy that, and I'll just continue eating the way I'm eating and listening to my body, and staying away from the foods that made me sick.
I enjoyed this conversation, Cary. Thank you so much. I look forward to following you along on X and hopefully more conversations ahead.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Mic drop.